The serpent of old. Is there a connection between the serpent that deceived Adam and Eve in the garden and the serpent gods worshipped by many cultures throughout the world? Let's talk about the Nagas. The Nagas were snake god deities who have been worshipped for thousands of years throughout the world. From the Vedic people in ancient India to Aztecs, and from Sumerians to Chinese, the snake people have been worshipped in different forms over the ages. Each of these civilizations had their own form of snake deities. The Indians had Adishisha, Lord Vishnu's vehicle, whereas the Aztecs had Quetzalcoatl, and the Chinese had their dragon gods. The Bible too depicts Lucifer in the form of a snake when he tempted Adam and Eve to eat the forbidden fruit in paradise. Each of these civilizations had elaborate scriptures and carvings in their temples depicting the snake gods. In fact, the Indian Vedas also talk about the different races of these Nagas, or snake people who live on earth in detail. In total, each of these cultures claim that the serpent gods brought civilization to mankind and gave us ancient knowledge. So serpents are known to universally be associated with the principle of knowledge and wisdom, just like the serpent from the garden. There's a very interesting passage concerning the serpent in Genesis chapter 3. And God tells the serpent, "I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel." So reading this verse, it makes it seem like that the serpent has its own seed, meaning its own children. Now the seed that I think it's talking about is known as the Nephilim, as described in the book of Genesis and the apocryphal book of Enoch, where the sons of God descend unto the daughters of man and make children with them. And I believe this is the seed that Genesis 3 is talking about. But of course, in modern theology schools and modern churches, they teach that the serpent seed is just a metaphor for people acting like the serpent. But I don't believe that's the case. I believe the modern church has a problem with turning everything in the Bible, especially in the book of Genesis, into an allegory. But I believe Genesis is to be taken as real history. Now, what inspired me to look into this topic is the Testament of Amram. Amram is the father of Moses, and the Testament of Amram is an apocryphal book found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, a decent amount of the Testament of Amram was damaged in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and we have fragments of it left. But there's enough information in this testament to tell us what Amram was actually talking about and witnessing. This is the Testament of Amram, fragment 4Q544. And this is concerning a vision that Amram has. "I did not take another wife, vacant woman, blank. All that I would return to Egypt in peace and would see the face of my wife." And this is the part that got me interested in this topic. And he states, "I saw watchers in my vision, a dream vision, and behold, two of them argued about me and said, blank, and they were engaged in a great quarrel concerning me. I asked them, you, what are you, blank, thus blank, about me. They answered and said to me, we have been made masters and rule over all sons of men. And they said to me, which of us do you choose? I raised my eyes and saw one of them. His looks were frightening, like those of a viper, and his garments were multicolored. He was extremely dark. And afterwards I looked, and behold, by his appearance and his face was like that of an adder, and he was covered with blank, together and over his eyes. This watcher, who is he? He said to me, the watcher and his three names are Belial, Prince of Darkness, and Melchiresha blank. And I said, my lord, what rule? And he said to me, and all his paths are darkness, and all his works are darkness, and he is blank in darkness. Blank, you see, and he rules over all darkness, and I rule over all light. So again, there's enough information in this damaged scroll to give you guys a picture of what Amram was witnessing. In his vision, he saw two watchers, two fallen angels, arguing over him. And in the vision, he said he raised his eyes and saw one of them, and his looks were frightening. He said he looked like a viper with the face of an adder, extremely dark. Now, an adder is a type of serpent. And then he states that his garments were multicolored, and he was extremely dark. So the watcher that Amram saw looked like a serpent, and that two of these watchers were quarreling over him, and that one of them was known as Belial, the Prince of Darkness, who rules over all darkness. So it's very interesting that Amram, Moses' father, encountered a watcher who looked like a serpent. Now in the Bible there are many ranks of angels. One of these ranks include the seraphim, and the depictions of the seraphim were serpentine in nature. In Hebrew, the word seraph or seraphim means burning, and is used 7 times throughout the text of the Hebrew Bible as a noun, usually to denote serpent, twice in the book of Numbers, once in the book of Deuteronomy, and 4 times in the book of Isaiah. So again, the seraphim is a high-ranking order of angels. Now what's very interesting, the word seraph or seraphim is used in Numbers chapter 21 verse 6. And the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and much people of Israel died. In Isaiah chapter 6 verse 2 through 6, it describes the seraphim, and it says this: Above it stood the seraphim, each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. And he cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts, the whole earth is full of his glory. So believe it or not, the seraphim were serpentine in nature. So now it makes sense as to why the Bible refers to the devil as the great serpent or the great dragon. In fact, in Revelations chapter 12 verse 9, it says, And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And this all connects to the story found in Enoch, where the angels come down to earth and present themselves as the gods. As I've mentioned in the beginning, many cultures worship the serpent, and they universally represent knowledge and wisdom. And all these cultures believe that the serpents brought them civilization, and the seed of these serpents are the Nephilim, and maybe their descendants are still among us. I find it very interesting that in the Bible, Jesus refers to the Pharisees as a generation of serpents or vipers, and that they are just like their father, the devil. How will they escape damnation? Now, to call a group of people a generation of vipers, and that their father is the devil, are some pretty serious accusations. But of course, modern theology will have you believe that this was just a metaphor. They're not really descendants of the Nephilim. But at this point, who knows? If you take Genesis as serious history, especially where God tells the serpent that there will be hostility between the serpent's seed and the seed of Eve. But yeah, I find it very interesting that all these cultures worship the serpent. Maybe this is why we have legends of vampires and stories of the elite and their thirst for blood.